Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of Aron Nimzowitsch, my system. The customary quote, enjoy all you have while pursuing all you want. From the American entrepreneur, author and motivational speaker Jim Rohn. In the last part, we went through games number 10 and 11 of the illustrative game section of the book. Moving further, we will go through game number 14 of the illustrative game section of the book. This game was played between Aron Nimzowitsch versus KARL in 1919 at Riga, Latvia. KARL was a Latvian chess master and composer of studies who played around the turn of the 20th century. Nimzowitsch with the white pieces and BEHTING with the black. Notes by Aron Nimzowitsch. e4, e5, knight f3 and f5. According to KARL view, which I am inclined to share, this move is quite playable. At any rate, I do not know a refutation to it. Knight takes on e5, queen f6, d4, d6, knight c4, and f takes on e4. Nimzowitsch writes of this position alongside its diagram as follows. Does the blockading move knight e3 appear justified? Nimzowitsch continues. Theory, the practice of other masters now recommends knight c3, queen g6 and f3. But after e takes on f3, queen takes on f3, knight f6, bishop d3, queen g4, queen e3 check, bishop e7, castles, knight c6, d5, knight b4, rook f4, queen d7, knight b6, a takes on b6 and rook takes on b4. The game is equal. So f takes on e4 and knight e3. Against this move, number 1, speak tradition, which rather demands knight c3. Number 2, the principle of economical development, that is not to let one piece go a-wandering. Number 3, the apparently small threat effect of the blockader, and yet knight e3 taken with the move next following is in every respect a master move, and even if all the rest of the world play here knight c3, I yet hold my move knight e3 to be more correct, and this for reasons based on the system. c6 and bishop c4 double exclamation mark. The point. In order to be able to castle, black must now play d5, but this move will hold out another field for the knight after bishop e3 and c4. d5, bishop b3 and bishop e6, or b5, a4, b4, c4 and so on. So bishop e6, c4, queen f7, queen e2, knight f6 and castles. Not knight c3 because of bishop e4. White wants to bring maximum pressure to bear on black's d-pawn. If we look at the blockading knight at e3 more closely, do we find that the knight meets the requirements asked of a blockader? Yes, for number 1, the knight establishes a strong blockade hindering the approach of enemy pieces to, for example, g4. Number 2, exercises threats from where the knight is stationed. Number 3, is very elastic, as we shall see later. In short, the knight at e3 is an ideal blockader. So castles, bishop b4, bishop d2, bishop takes on d2, knight takes on d2, castles, and f4. Intending f5 in order to win the d-pawn. D takes on c4, knight takes on c4, queen e7, f5, and bishop d5. Black seeks to maintain the point d5. Knight takes on d5, c takes on d5, and knight e3. Hardly has the knight at e3 disappeared than a new knight stands in their place. Against such elasticity, not even death can prevail. Queen d7 and knight takes on d5. The threat effect of the blockader from their post culminates in this decisive sacrifice. Knight takes on d5, queen takes on e4, rook d8, and f6. The point of the combination, and at the same time a further illustration of the pawn's lust to expand. The f-pawn was a candidate. G takes on f6. If knight c6, then f7 check. King h8, bishop takes on d5, queen takes on d5, question mark, queen takes on d5, rook takes on d5, f8 queen check, and so on. And if king f8, bishop takes on d5, queen takes on d5, queen takes on h7, and white wins. So g takes on f6, rook f5, king h8, rook takes on d5, and rook e8. If queen e8, then bishop c2 wins a whole rook. So rook e8, rook takes on d7, rook takes on e4, rook d8 check, king g7, rook g8 check, king h6, and rook f1, where black resigned the game. Next is game number 31, which was played between Aron Nimzowitsch versus Anton Olsson in the Nordisk Schackforbund tournament of 1924 at Copenhagen, Denmark. Anton Olsson was a Swedish chess master who played in the first half of the 20th century and was Swedish champion in 1921. Nimzowitsch writes of the game as following: in which 7 white pawns show greater collective mobility than 8 black ones. Thus does mind, that is dynamic effect, triumph over mere matter. Nimzowitsch with the white pieces and Olsson with the black. Notes by Aron Nimzowitsch. f4, c5, e4, knight c6, d3, g6, c4, bishop g7, knight c3, b6, knight f3, bishop e7, and g4. The collective mobility of white's king-side pawns already makes itself felt quickly. e6, bishop g2, knight e7 and knight b5 in order to provoke a6, after which the lack of protection under which the b pawn will suffer is to form the basis of a sharp combination. d6, castles, a6, knight a3, castles, queen e2, queen d7, bishop e3 and knight b4. Else there would follow rook a d1 and d4 with advantage to white. So knight b4, knight c2, bishop takes on b2, rook b1, bishop c3, knight takes on b4 and bishop takes on b4, or c takes on b4 and bishop takes on b6. Reference the note to white's ninth move. So bishop takes on b4 and bishop c1. White has succeeded in wresting the long diagonal from his opponent. f6, bishop b2, e5 and g5. The connection between sacrifice and blockade would have stood out in even sharper relief had the continuation been f5, g5 and h4 with an enduring attack, while black's pawn plus would have but an illusory value. So g5 and knight c6. Or f takes on g5 and knight takes on g5, threatening bishop h3, knight c6 and f5. So knight c6, g takes on f6, queen g4, f takes on e5, d takes on e5, queen e3 and queen h5 to protect the e pawn. Knight g5, bishop c8, f7 check, king g7, queen f4 and king h6 forced. Knight e6 check, e takes on f4 and bishop g7 mate. Next is game number 36, which was played between Aron Nimzowitsch versus John Taubenhaus in the All-Russian Masters Tournament of 1914 at St. Petersburg, Russia. John Taubenhaus was a Polish-born French chess master who played around the turn of the 20th century. Nimzowitsch describes the game as illustrating the isolated d-pawn, Nimzowitsch with the white pieces and Taubenhaus with the black. Notes by Aron Nimzowitsch. d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6, c4, e6, e3, c5, bishop d3, knight c6, castles, d takes on c4, bishop takes on c4, c takes on d4, e takes on d4, bishop e7, knight c3, castles and bishop e3. d5 would be barred because of knight a5, b3 and bishop b4. Nor would bishop g5 be good, b6 and so on. So bishop e3 and b6. a6 and b5 would unnecessarily weaken the point c5. So b6, queen e2, bishop e7, rook d1, knight b4, knight e5, rook c8, rook c1, knight d5, and knight b5. A strategically noteworthy conception. White says to himself, in the center I am strong, therefore a strategical diversion is justified. Moreover, I have no particular wish after, say, bishop a6 or bishop d3 to be saddled with hanging pawns. The right move was nevertheless bishop a6. For example, bishop a6, knight takes on c3, b takes on c3, queen c7, bishop takes on b7, queen takes on b7, and c4, with eventually a4, a5. So knight b5, a6, knight a7, and rook a8. If rook c7, then bishop takes on a6. So rook a8, knight c6, queen d6, knight takes on e7 check, queen takes on e7, bishop d3, and knight takes on e3. There was no occasion for this. Other lines of play to be considered were number 1, a5 and rook f to c8, or number 2, rook f to d8 followed by knight d7 to f8. For number 3, knight e8, see part 2 of the book, chapter 3 and topic number 4. So knight takes on e3, f takes on e3, and b5. Weakens the point c5. After a5, instead of the text move, and rook f to c8, there would not be much wrong with him. So b5 and rook c5. By occupying this outpost station, white gets play in the c file. Rook c8, rook c1, g6, and a3. What now follows could serve as a textbook example for play in an open file. The slowness with which white step by step gains in terrain is also of significance from the point of view of position play. Knight e8, b4, and knight d6. If queen g5, then knight takes on f7. So knight d6, queen f2, and f5. In order to relieve the f pawn and to make queen g5 possible. Queen f4 and knight e8. Black can undertake nothing. Bishop e2, knight d6, and bishop f3. Breaks down the opposition in the c file. Rook takes on c5, d takes on c5, and knight e8. If knight e4, then c6. g5, c takes on b7, rook f8, rook c8, and white wins. So knight e8, rook d1, knight f6 and c6. The c-pawn, the fruit of the operations on the c-file, now brings the decision. Bishop c8, c7, rook a7, rook d8 check, king g7, rook takes on c8, rook takes on c7, and knight takes on g6, where black resigned the game. Next is game number 37, which was played between AKIBA Rubinstein versus Eugene ZNOSKO-BOROVSKY in the St. Petersburg tournament of 1909 at St. Petersburg, then the Russian Empire. Nimzowitsch writes of the game as following: is dedicated to hanging pawns and is characteristic of these, though only in a quite special sense. It shows the frightful dangers to which hanging pawns are exposed at birth. Infant mortality is very high among them and appreciably exceeds the mortality of grown-up hanging pawns, who, if the worst comes to the worst, can seek refuge in blockaded security. Rubinstein with the white pieces and ZNOSKO-BOROVSKY with the black. Notes by Aron Nimzowitsch. d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, bishop e7, e3, knight d7, knight f3, castles, queen c2, and b6. c5 is possible here. For instance, c5, c takes on d5, knight takes on d5, bishop takes on e7, queen takes on e7, knight takes on d5, e takes on d5, d takes on c5, knight takes on c5, and the Isolani does not look so bad. So b6, c takes on d5, e takes on d5, bishop d3, bishop d7, castles, long, knight e4, h4, f5, king b1, and c5. The correctness of this move stands or falls by that of the pawn sacrifice recommended in the next move. Sound and good is, instead of c5, rook c8 as given by Dr. Lasker. For instance, queen b3, knight takes on c3 check, followed by c5. Not quite so good, yet by no means bad, would seem to be h6. Bishop f4, bishop d6, bishop takes on d6, and c takes on d6. But c5 was played in the game by black, and play continued with d takes on c5 and b takes on c5. Rook c8 was possible here. If then c takes on b6, knight takes on b6, and black would have attacking chances. The answer to knight d4 could be knight takes on c5. The outcome of the game would have been doubtful in either case, whereas now there is no doubt whatever. It may be observed that if knight takes on c5, then knight takes on d5. bishop takes on d5 and bishop c4 wins for white. So b takes on c5, knight takes on e4, f takes on e4, bishop takes on e4, d takes on e4, queen b3 check, king h8, queen takes on b7, e takes on f3, rook takes on d7, queen e8, rook takes on e7, queen g6 check, king a1 and rook b8. The gale has not only blown away the hanging pawns but has also taken a piece along with them. Black's desperation attack is warded off easily. Queen e4. Lasker praises this move, but queen d5 seems to do as well. For example, f takes on g2, queen takes on g2, queen c2 and bishop f6. True, many roads lead to Rome. So queen e4, queen takes on e4, rook takes on e4, f takes on g2, rook g1, rook takes on f2, rook f4 and rook c2. If rook takes on b2, then rook f8 check and wins outright. So rook c2, b3 and h6. There followed bishop e7, rook e8, king b1, rook e2, bishop takes on c5, rook d8, bishop d4, rook c8 and rook g4, where black resigned the game. Alright, we conclude this part of Aron Nimzowitsch, my system here, and we shall continue onwards from the next one. Here is a look at the recent channel support from my Twitch stream. One new supporter, Ross the Boss, who is also a fellow streamer from the US with a particular interest in chess. I will post a link to his streaming channel on Twitch in the video description. Do check it out. Also, a big thank you to Purple Faye and Hearfty for sending me a beautiful chess set from the US. Thank you for the kind support, everyone. Much appreciated. Alright, till next time, take care.